Hello and welcome to the Doing Sex Differently podcast. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm with our other host,
Trevor.
Welcome to our first episode of Doing Sex Differently. This is our first episode, so we are going to introduce what in the world is doing sex differently. What are we doing differently? We're going to talk all about that, how it came about, and probably so much more. And on this episode, we really want to introduce a lot of the things that we have discovered on our journey of being together and changing how we do sex. And so while this episode in particular will introduce a lot of topics, we will dive deeper into probably a lot of these topics that we bring up into full episodes. So think about this like a general overview of what we've been up to so that you get an idea of like, what the heck is this all about? And that way you can be intrigued and curious about what's to come.
Yeah, I think a big part here, it's also documenting and showcasing as we go through the journey too. So we're going to catch you up because this has been, 6 months in the making already, and kind of start from the fundamentals that we started learning from and giving you the tools, to learn with us. And then the other side is like the vulnerable truths that come out, because it's not an easy practice. It's not something that, comes naturally, because it's a lot of reconditioning, reprogramming, and it's just weird, right? So we want to get in the nit and gritties and, talk about the taboo subject and have fun with it.
I absolutely love what you just said there, because you mentioned that it's not exactly our natural way of doing things because of our conditioning. So when we've learned so much about sex, which is our conditioning that we grow up with in, our society, and just what we learn from media and all of the things, that when we get rid of this conditioning, we actually come back to a natural way of doing sex. And that's what we are getting back to. So we're uncovering what is this conditioning that we have that is actually keeping us from our true power. And we're allowing ourselves to do sex differently. Okay, so what is actually different about what we're doing? So let's talk about it. So we started this with a Tantra journey. It all started, for me, it started a while back when I learned about cervical orgasm. And so I was on this journey to connect with myself deeply. But what I realized cervical orgasm is really all about for women is it's about this energy. It's deeply about energy. So really at the heart of what we are doing as doing sex differently is we are tapping into our energy first and foremost, versus when a lot of times sex is very like physical, a lot of movement, a lot of like friction, and we are really slowing things down. And so this falls into this category of, it's what's called neo-tantra. Tantra is a big umbrella. Tantra is like a way of life, a way of doing things. It's its own like large philosophy. And neo-tantra is just the sexual practice of applying tantra to sexual practices. So in that, we are slowing way down so that we can actually get in touch with this energetic current that is our natural state of being. So each man and woman has a positive and a negative pole. And this is an innate technology within our bodies, that the man's penis is the positive pole and his heart is the negative pole. Women have breasts which protrude from their body, which is indicative of giving, just like a man's penis. And a woman's positive pole then, which is opposite the man's negative, is her heart. So the woman is positive in her heart, negative in her, what we call our yoni, your vagina, however, we'll probably call it yoni here, but your vagina. And these poles, the magnetism between them, this is a piece of technology that we have innate within us that has its own intelligence. But we're so numb to it, we're so unaware of it, we don't even know ourselves as powerful in this way. So we just do sex the way that we have been seeing it, you know, in movies or in porn or all these things that we grow up with, and or these even usually disconnection from this really sacred, innate part of ourselves, that we're giving our power away to something that can be very sacred. So another way of saying like neo-tantra or sexual tantra is sacred sexuality, sacred sex. So that's what we're bringing back to it, is like when you come back to the energetic root, that's what becomes sacred, because then you're truly using your own energy for what it's actually meant for, and to feel pleasure from this very innate, like source, innocent place of being. And it's true love, it's true beauty.
Yeah, it's instead of like using sex as an escapism or just a way to enjoy, you know, it's like, why do we like to party, do drugs, etc.? Sex also falls in that same category. And, you know, what we've taken the approach upon, it's slowing things down so that way we can feel first and feel from the inside out, and connect with the actual energy. And, you know, we traditionally, you know, been conditioned now over 100 years, especially now even more so with social media, you know, the hookup culture, all these type of things, to do sex very unconsciously, you know, doing it, you know, just because it's the cool thing to do, doing it because, you know, maybe we have this cliquey desire in that moment.
You think it's what your partner wants even too.
Or what your partner wants, or the person that you're pursuing. And, you know, we forget to connect first. We forget that, okay, on a deeper side, there potentially are levels further that we can unlock in terms of sacred sexual energy that can then be transmuted for creation, transmuted for, you know, just being great, to be energized. And, you know, there's so much deeper talk about that. Also, as a man, you know, we jerk off, we ejaculate a lot, we do these things, you know, whether it's, you know, sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's just because we want that, you know, quote unquote release, but it's not holding on to sacred life force energy. It's not using that for your business, not using that for life, conquering, warrior, you know, it's just very depleting. And what if there was ways to have multiple orgasms? Or what if there's ways to, you know, have an orgasm without an ejaculation? You know, what if there was a way to harness that sacred, you know, energy and use that in a place of love, or use that in a place of business, use that in a place of other things, right? And that's, I think, the journey of like choosing to do sex differently versus what's traditionally done, you know? But obviously it's taken me a lot of time to figure some of this stuff out. And I guess that's what we're going to continue to talk about throughout, you know, further episodes and even this episode here. So,
yeah. So to expand on what you said, you mentioned, you know, like when it goes for either men or for women, but when you're masturbating, you're doing it maybe consciously. You're like, oh yeah, I want the release. It feels good. I'm doing it for the pleasure. But underneath that, it's like you're doing it to feel something. And it's like to get to this feeling, this sensation. And it's like when we are like forcing that feeling, what we're really feeling is we're trying to feel something because we haven't felt these pent up emotions. And emotions are energy in motion, but they get stuck in the body. And when we're not actively releasing those emotions in our daily life, we men and women go years with, suppressed emotions. Men are told from a young age, not to cry. Women are told, not to be too much, and, emotions are inconvenient and all of that. And we stuff things down, that we have all of this energy pent up around shame and guilt and even ego, and I should be this and I should be able to do that, and all the pressure that what we're trying to feel in what we will refer to as normal sex is that you're trying to feel this pleasure that's underneath all of that emotion. So you have to work hard, stronger, faster, give it to me more, in order to actually feel that pleasure. And so when we are doing sex differently now, when we are slowing down an extreme amount, what we are working towards achieving is actually feeling more from doing less. And so Trevor and I actively do practices to release and digest our emotions from day-to-day life, so that we are not having emotional sex. We are having energetic, regenerative sex. Oh my God, I just got chills because a dream of mine is to, I want to be a mother who looks forward to having sex with my husband, Trevor, probably, because it's a resource for me. Because it fills me up, because it's a place of love and care and tenderness. Whereas when women are mothers and we are exhausted, well, I can imagine, I'm not a mother yet, but when you're exhausted and you're giving so much, that then sex just feels like giving yet another thing. And that is why a lot of women in marriage will avoid sex, is because it's yet another thing that is depleting her, or she's just getting this tiny bit of pleasure, but yet it's still overriding these emotions because you're having to, have more friction, feel more, do more, in order to actually get that pleasurable release. Whereas what I see as the future of sex and doing sex differently is doing less to feel more, let the pleasure arise from a natural state. I mean, even when I started this journey a couple years ago, and I didn't really know what it was leading to, but I was really intrigued by sacred sexuality. And all of a sudden I became very aware that, wow, it could become very common for me to cry during sex. I was like, as I was having my own sexual awakening in my early 30s, I would self-pleasure and I would release. And it was like a self-pleasure as in a massage. I'm giving my yoni a massage. I was not doing it for the outcome of getting off, but I realized I was releasing so much of this disconnection from myself that, not only was it probably my own release and sadness and anger that was coming out, but probably from my mother and my grandmother. And so, once I could get, kind of beyond some of those emotions and, honor them, and also feel that there's pleasure on the other side of that, then sex, as well as we are slowing down, gets to be, if I've had a hard day, but Trevor can meet me where I'm at, and then I can release any emotions that I need. So I feel safe enough to do so. Mm-hmm. I know that we've created this sacred space where that's allowed. And then from that place, then my pleasure will arise once I can let go of the emotions. And it becomes like a cleansing, like I said, regenerative. It becomes a place where we can give each other energy.
Yeah, my point to add would be, Lauren helps women with dating, and our approach to sex is also similar to her approach when it comes to also dating, which we're dating for the purpose of growing, of growth, of becoming the better versions of ourselves. And the same thing approaching sex in this new way. It's also in that purpose that we're, transcending, that we're working on becoming better, that we're growing inside the department of the bedroom, right? Which will also ultimately mean that our sex is never going to get boring. It's never going to, because we're continually learning on this process, right? It's a continuation of development. So I think that's really what's special. And then the other side too, it's like we're never taught any of these things. Our parents never taught us. School never taught us. And what we do learn, it's, through that, first discoveries of having sex for the first couple times or first couple partners, right? And then, pornographic images and movies that we see. And, nothing is around actual connection, around the energetic exchange, around, healing each other, releasing emotions, crying, like only cry you would see is in the pain that would come from a bad sexual experience. And the loving, the care, that's something that isn't taught. And I wouldn't even be aware or know if it wasn't for Lauren, if it wasn't for starting to read certain books and learning from other people's experiences, that there's another way, that there's something else out there, that we can do things differently, that we could take a different approach, and we could have, a different form of energy when it comes to this sacred practice, this practice, right? So I think that's what's really special in the journey that we get to share with you guys. And I think that's the power of having this podcast, is because we can get that voice out, we can get the message across. Because I think if we can also get more people to start thinking about sex differently, doing some of these practices, we can really change the world in many different ways, right? So it will just bring more power in relationships and, in families, and continuation for generations. So
yeah, it brings your power back to the individual, rather than constantly almost running on like depletion and getting like a little quick fix of a release or an orgasm or ejaculation, and then you're just back to square one. Whereas this is really at the root of filling up your cup, and it's not a temporary thing, and you're no longer avoiding yourself. You're not, you're open and vulnerable with your partner, willing to show, the emotions that come up. And so I want to share our main resources that we have used to get into this work. So major shout out to Cervix, who Olivia Bryant, who is the owner, the founder of Cervix, and she was the first woman that I found that was awakening her cervix. And for anyone who doesn't know, like, what the heck that is, because if there's any men out there, or even women, honestly, a lot of women don't even know where their cervix is, and that's okay. And now's the time to learn. It is between your uterus, and which we call our womb, and the vaginal canal. And this is where the baby comes out, or this is where you bleed every month. So the cervix is also, if you have an IUD, that's where the IUD goes. So the cervix is actually, we think of it as being very numb, but it can be awakened. It can be resensitized. It actually has a lot of nerve endings, and it's there for pleasure. And I cannot wait to have an orgasmic birth one day. And this is one of the reasons why I'm also awakening my cervix and reconnecting to my cervix. And it's a body part that I'm reconnecting with. So Cervix not only has helped me on my journey, but also Trevor has been in their beautiful men's group on helping
awakening the cervix.
Yeah, helping men understand their role in supporting women, but also giving them men's practices as well. That have added to our journey.
Yeah, I guess, what was it, beginning of November, or I joined the Olivia for the first time, opened up a container for men, and her partner is a big part of like leading that side, for the what it takes as the man to be comforting to the cervix and to have better understanding of our own energy and our own selves, to be able to, breathe downwards, to be able to feel ourselves more from the inside out, feeling the energies, and, having some breath practices and also self-pleasure practices that are very conscious. So,
yeah. And then, the books that we recommend are by Diana Richardson. And this is what actually really started our journey together, because I was already on my own cervical journey. And I had mentioned to Trevor, I mean, we were a couple months into dating, about 3 months into dating. And I just had to express, like, we got to do sex differently. Like, it's good, but I know it can be like out of this world fantastic. And I mean, it was scary to bring that up to you. And I know it took there was obviously some resistance at first. Like, what does this mean? What does this entail? All of this stuff. And I was kind of like, it's Tantra. Like, we'll just read Tantra things. I want to slow down, this and that. But it was like, I didn't really know how to, for lack of a better word, like get him on board and for him to really see the benefit in it for both of us. Because it kind of feels like I'm asking for the benefit for me, because I want to have a cervical awakening and a cervical orgasm and all of these things. But I was like, wait, but this is also for you to have a full body orgasm, for you to get in touch with yourself. And I even learned even more what the benefit is to the man. And now that we've been on this journey. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, actually one day I was out at a coffee shop, and of course, synchronicity, I went to this coffee shop. I had seen this older man that it lives in our small beach town that we live in. And I have had conversations with him before. And I sat next to him and I said, hey, how's it going? And I looked over and he's reading a book called Tantric Orgasm For Women. And I was like, hold up, sir. Tell me more about this book, because I'm on my own like cervical journey, and I'm such an open book about this kind of stuff, because clearly this man is out in public reading this book that I'm like, we must connect on this. Like, what is this about? Like, why are you reading this book? Well, it wasn't so much about why are you reading the book. I was like, what is this book about, and should I be reading it? And he was like, absolutely, this book is amazing. So this then, I started listening to the book. It's free on Spotify Premium. Tantric Orgasm For Women. Highly recommend for both women and men.
We got all the plugs here.
Yes. Resources are key. What do we always say? Knowledge comes before experience. Thank you, Joe Dispenza. Okay, so got to get the knowledge, y'all. So I started listening to this book because I was like, okay, what does this book even know that I don't know? That I've already been on this journey now for like 2+ years. What else do I need to know? And it just started to articulate everything that I ever wanted my partner to understand about my pleasure, and the way that a woman's body works, and how different we are from men in a very beautiful, intelligently, designed way, but we are very different. And so it's really important for us to know how to learn each other's bodies, and even for a woman to learn her own body when we're not taught that growing up, whether it was from our mothers or even from school. Like, if those things weren't talked about, we just don't know the power of our body then, and the power of our pleasure. So long story short, I started listening to this book, and I was like, Trevor, please start listening to this book as well. So you started listening to the book with me. And then there's also, now there's 3 books that they have. Her, the author, Diana Richardson, and her husband. There's a book about men's orgasm, which is wonderful. I loved it. It connected so many dots for me. And then there is like an overall Tantra, I forget what it's called, but Tantric Heart or something like that. And I'm still listening to that one, but very good resources.
Yeah, I think it was more like we're going on a trip, and on the airplane, she's like, yo, we're listening to this book. And I'm like, okay, let's see, right? And we just started listening. And that was at least how I got onto the whole tantric experience and Diana Richardson's work. And that was like the introduction of like, okay, a different approach, a different world. So, and it started from, listening to the book, and she gave me, hey, these chapters are the most important, like go through that. And then, we can go from there. And then what's also nice is that then later she bought the physical copy, and we were able to also go through that together, highlight sections, and, do some of the practices that are recommended inside the book. So yeah, that was definitely very, very helpful. And, there's still more of her resources that we can definitely find. At the end of the day, we'll just like link all the things in the description below.
Yeah, definitely get started with the audios. But if you're serious about this work, get the damn book, physical copy, because you reading it and us being able to even like read it together and like go over things, it's just like it makes it land. Like you need to hear things a couple of times to really understand what things mean, how to do it. All of that will help. So our final resource then is Sasha Cobra's work. And she has a wonderful Instagram full of small clips from her workshops that she does. She holds workshops yearly in Mexico. And we haven't been to one, but I hopefully will go to one this year. And I'm in her Energy Tune membership. And it's this beautiful breathing practice that, again, coming back to those emotions, it's all about digesting the emotions that sit on top of our pleasure. And it's meeting yourself in the present moment without expectation, without an outcome. And this shit takes practice. I mean, I've been doing it for a couple of months, and I mean, I've had some like minor releases and things like that, but I mean, it's a really beautiful practice, and she has a beautiful community, and the way that she treats sex and sees sex as like beauty and really meeting each other lovingly and like love being at the core of everything is, I just love her work. I love her delivery. I love all of it.
Yeah, I'd say the problem is that most people that are going to actually start going through the resources and start doing the work, I think it's like probably with anything, but I'm going to say specific to here, like 90% of you are going to stop and, not going to ever have that breakthrough or create it as a way of being, right? Because the problem is it's hard. And, what Lauren was also touching on is a lot of the work is removing layers of past trauma, removing layers of old ways of doing. As a man, it's resensitizing our cock, like from years of, this and, heavy friction that creates calluses and stuff like that. So it's just like resensitizing, because what if you were soft? What if you are just barely touching? Well, there's actually a lot of sensitivity that can be found, but it takes several months to recreate that sensitivity. And, that's the process. That's the journey. But I feel like a lot of us are going to give up way too soon because, it's not working. Oh, I'm not feeling, this or that. Right. And that's something that I battle with because, this is the journey. But the reality is it's like, even with the resources, with the content, it still takes practice. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. And, some of you might hear that, what I'm saying right now, and just, okay, I'm not going to listen to any more podcasts. I'm not even going to try because it's too hard or whatever. But obviously we want to be the people that show as well that it is worth it, that it does make a difference, that we are the difference makers to being like, okay, if they can do it, we can do it too, right? So it's just like, that's what I've seen. It's 100% possible. I've been reading the stories. Like, I love Diana's stuff because she gives a lot of case studies in there and just shows, oh, wow, that's what's possible. That's what's on the other side. Holy shit. So maybe it is worth, spending a year, 2 years, whatever it takes to kind of find out. And if it really doesn't work, then so be it. Right? Whatever, it can go back to, to what I know, but the reality is it's like, I think it's worth at least putting in a good amount of effort and finding out and doing my best to then figure it out, right? And plus, in the meantime, we're having a lot of fun. We're learning together. And, you know, our sex life is also become better. It's become more connective. It's become more rejuvenating. It's become more nourishing. And you know, it's also shedding some of those already layers. So we are getting closer and closer and closer. So it's like amazing. And then plus, obviously, Lauren's just like an incredible supportive partner. But yeah.
Yeah. And as Trevor mentioned, not only are you, this whole process is to resensitize. As we do that, you're literally creating new neural pathways from your brain to your genitals and to really focus there. And probably this is more so for women, but I think for men too. Like when we are having sex, we are in our mind and we are thinking about a million things. And maybe at some point we check out and, you know, we're a lot of times too, like we're just like, okay, I'm just going to like kind of get through this to make sure like the man gets off or whatever. But the thing is that it takes time, it takes work to rewire your brain and to surrender. I mean, our first like 4 months were touch and go, like we're on this track, we're off this track, we're on the track, we're off the track. And that's okay because that's part of the journey. We're frustrated, you know, we haven't connected in a week and, you know, and then it's like, okay, we're back on it. Like, okay, now we're feeling positive, we're feeling hopeful. So you're on and you're off and you're on and you're off and that's okay. It gets to be part of the journey. And what the other thing I'll say is that it's never too late to start this work. So much of the case studies, as Trevor mentioned in Diana's work, these people are over 40, 50 years old. Like
no, like 60, 70 sometimes too. You know, after 20 years of like almost
marriage,
a sexless marriage, you know, it's like, what, people do that? Like that's a thing? I didn't even know. Yeah. Right? But, you know, the stats actually say, you know, some of the, like, I don't know the percentage, but yeah, it's unfortunate. But what's also really special is us being so young, or maybe you being so young, like we have the opportunity to put ourselves like light years ahead. You know, it's like, even in my men's group, I'm the youngest guy in the entire room. And, you know, those guys only wish that they started learning at the age that I am. Right. And that's really cool. And it's like, okay, what would happen when I'm 40 years old? You know, what would happen when I'm 50 years old? You know, it's like, yeah.
And even still, like, you know, it is a mind trip a little bit. It's like, you know, for a while you were very resistant to like, I don't see the benefit. You know what? It's like one day you saw the benefit, the next day you didn't, and all the things. And that's just how it goes. And some days I'm like, I'm lost too. And I'm like, I don't know, like, what are we really doing here? And just take it as it comes. And like, I truly see this as not only a beautiful for myself and for what my soul knows to be true, but also how beautiful it will be to pass this on to future generations and to change the trajectory of how humans are treating sex, and for us to truly be self-empowered and not controlled by lack of sexual knowledge, controlled by porn, controlled by, just this emotional type sex that keeps us in this hamster wheel of, you know, fast food sex, I've heard it called, you know, and where we are truly going and having a gourmet experience and allowing ourselves to use our own pleasure as a resource for ourselves and for our partners, and to literally plug into this battery of positive, negative charge and have full body orgasms. And I want to be clear too, let's talk about this. Like, from even when Trevor and I got together as a couple, we were having what I would call like conscious sex. Like, you know, we were very in tune with, you know, asking each other, you know, what we like, what we want, what do you like, communicating to a certain level. But, you know, we each had not tuned into our own power first. Because like while we were having conscious, loving sex, it's like I know that there's this cosmic level of sex available. And I'm like, that's what I want. And I know we can get there. And that to me is what is exciting, because it's a place where we both get to be nourished and replenished. And I knew that, you know, asking you to come along this journey with me, even though I probably sounded crazy in the beginning, I knew that not only was it for me to, you know, have more of an awakening within my body, I knew that the process would benefit you as a man. And I think that that is what's really beautiful, is when a man can also meet his woman. And actually, it's interesting, Trevor is even in this men's group, some of the men are the one leading the charge in their relationship and trying to get their woman on board. And that's also a thing. So, you know, if you're a man or a woman listening to this, it goes both ways in our relationship. It just happened to be me. I'm a little bit older than Trevor, and I've been on this journey for my own sexual awakening now for a bit. So I was the one leading the charge here. So even if you think if you know you're having already like conscious, loving sex, you're asking for your wants and your needs and things like that, there is a layer deeper that you can go. There, you know, if you're not having cervical orgasms, it's like, okay, like that's the layer deeper. That's the layer that, you know, takes a little bit more intention. It needs a little bit more slowness. And then the man needs to meet you there as well. But men are not typically used to going slow because they're worried about not staying hard. Because they need that friction to stay hard. So it's this practice for the man to actually go slow enough and long enough that the woman can really feel that, and you know the poles can meet, the cervical pole and the penis can meet and create that magic together. And then the final resource that I would say that is a little more intuitive, but probably we will have some resources on in the future, is yoni massage and lingam massage. And just even, you know, body massage for your partner, where it's even just giving one way, allowing your partner to fully receive without them needing to reciprocate, so that they know that they can just fully relax, fully let go, receive the touch, receive the love without any sort of anticipation for needing to give back. And I think that that is a huge opportunity. You might also kind of hear these seen as like, or, you know, in social media and stuff, like some people call them like worship nights, which is also a beautiful thing. But it's like, yeah, like tonight's your night, or, you know, tonight's my night or whatever. But these massage practices are a really great way to support your partner in that emotional release, and also for you to be curious about their body and, you know, just give love to their body. And one thing that I often think about in sex and just in our connection is that, you know, we know that we're all one. We're just separated by these bodies that we all have. And so often when I'm giving to my partner, I am giving as if like you are me, and like I'm loving on your body as if it were my body, because, you know, in consciousness, we are all connected. And so it's like, okay, how would I want, you know, to be loved on? You know, how would I want to, like just think about like just giving so much love and tenderness. And that's another practice that's very supportive for getting to this energetic type of sex versus emotional type of sex. It's like there are practices where you can support your partner in releasing those emotions, and you get to explore their body in the process. All right. That's all we've got for our first episode. Thank you for joining us on Doing Sex Differently. We are going to unpack a slew of topics going forward. We are so excited to be on this journey. We're so excited to be finally sharing this journey. I think we both feel like we've had so much to share and not an outlet to bring it to. And so we are really excited for this outlet to share our journey and eventually provide resources for those who want support in this journey, because like we said, there is going to be times where you want to quit, where you want to give up. And it's like, what is actually possible? And we are such, cosmic beings. And we have, again, this like super beautiful, innate technology within us. We are energetic bodies. And so we are only just using 10% of our energetic power. That this, I feel like, really helps turn on that energetic power, get resourced, and allow yourself to lead yourself in a beautifully powerful way out in the world. And then, lead yourself, lead your family, lead your community from this self-empowered place that creates more love in the world all around.
Woohoo! Yes!
All right. We'll see you next time on Doing Sex Differently with Trevor and Lauren.